so we can listen to the question. There's tons of comments. Here we go, brilliant. So yeah, and we're really here to kind of talk about the course, and we can talk about FSharp, we can talk about the plans we have for the course, how the production is going, anything like that. We're very happy to talk about any of that today. We'll be on live for about an hour or so. We've planned for about an hour. If people want to have lots and lots to talk about, we might extend that. But otherwise, yeah, it's this kind of space for you to ask us any questions you have. And we'll be kind of listening or trying to listen on everywhere. Right now we're listening on obviously the Hangout and Twitter, and we could get on Facebook as well at some point as well, if you can. Yeah. But yeah. So what made you join FSharp then, Victor? What's your kind of story about FSharp? Was it something you've tried before, or is it something you haven't ever experienced and you just want to learn more? We've got quite a range of experiences on the course. You learned about a year ago, okay. And was that just yourself, or did you kind of come across it while you were working? Let me check if I'm missing anything. I have so many doubts to build WPF apps Windows. Yes. Do you mean doubts? You're a forestry student. This is awesome. So what's the story behind that then? Why is a forestry student learning how to build apps in FSharp? There's got to be a really interesting story. I'm close to R language and Python. Okay. Oh, so you do some data analytics on forestry using R, Python, and SAS, or SAS. How do you say it? SAS. FSharp as type providers. So you want to access some of the forestry data directly in FSharp using type providers. That sounds pretty cool, actually. We have 4 additional viewers. For those of you who are watching but haven't joined us, there is a limit to how many people we can have at any one time. We can, I think, only have 10 people live. However, you can come and join us on the, if you go to the Hangout page, there's a link in the comments, so you can come and join us using that link. And then you can chat with us if you want, for sure. And we have a Q&A set up, so you should be able to ask questions on the Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll try and answer them live on the Hangout. Right now we have Victor with us, who is talking about how he's interested in using FSharp and FSharp type providers on forestry data, which I think is pretty cool. We'd love to hear about your other potential use cases for FSharp, what you're thinking of using it in. I know some of you are doing some pretty cool stuff, some pretty interesting stuff. Victor amongst them. So do let us know what you're up to and what you're interested in doing.
So we're also listening on the Slack channel right now and monitoring it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send it through to us, and we'll try to answer any and all.
Although you are in random instead of in general, but okay, sure.
Well, we're kind of random guys, aren't we?
Yeah. So should we start with a kind of a brief overview of kind of what we've been doing? I know we sent an update today, but we could go through kind of what we've been doing. A lot of the time we've been spending over the past month has been getting our production up to speed and going. That's like video recording and stuff. So we've actually, I think, almost finished section 1. We are almost done. That's kind of the introduction section. That's where we show people how to. Thank you. I'm a little bit tired and a little bit jet lagged.
We're just showing people the basics of FSharp, really. So people that have got the skill, like your grandmother, who can sometimes be kind of awkward to watch using the computer. We're trying to get those kind of people up to speed so that they can also access the course. We want to make this course as wide-reaching as possible, so we've had to start at a low level. So our plan is to go from there to sort of slowly build people up. So most of you guys I know are experts or very intermediate level FSharp users, and we want to help you all, whatever skill level you're at, to get to the same sort of intermediate advanced level. So for those of you who are advanced, please bear with the early parts. It's just to help get other people up to speed too.
Yeah, we'll explain a little bit more in the course itself when we get to the videos. We'll kind of explain a little bit about like the first section. I think if you've already got an FSharp environment running and you've tried FSharp code in the past, you can probably just skip the first section because it's really all about getting set up and getting going. There'll be a few videos at the beginning which are all about the course and how to use the course, and those are kind of highly recommended. But the rest of it is going to be basically about how to kind of set up your environment. And then the next section is the one where you'll start getting with your first project, really. So we've got a section 0, which is getting set up, and then we've got section 1, which is your first project. And so your first project is actually going to be creating images with FSharp. We're still kind of out the kinks and ironing out the details, or is that working out the details and ironing out the kinks? So we're still working on this right now. And we have a question from Ryan about which environment we're covering. So Windows, Linux, and Mac is the question. So definitely Mac and Windows will be covered, and those will be covered using the Xamarin Studios, and we'll also be showing you how to get set up on Linux as well. So on Linux, we'll be showing you how to install and run a version of FSharp on your Linux box. We'll pick a distribution, probably a popular distribution like Ubuntu. It seems like the most sensible case. It covers a wider variety of bases. We probably won't cover more than one distribution simply because that's a lot of work for not much reward, if that makes sense. It's term of you have so many different distributions, so many different packaging issues that we have to cover that it would be quite hard to go through all of them. But we'll show it to you working on Linux, and we'll show you how to get your environment set up on Linux. And we'll also show you how to use Git from the command line on Linux, and we'll show you how to use the GitHub user interface for Mac and Windows. Most of you, I think, will be pretty familiar with this stuff, but it matters a lot when people are kind of just beginning. I have an apprentice actually who's helping out with the course. You might see her pop up in the forum and in the Slack channel called Helen. Helen will actually be taking the course, and she's kind of a non-programmer. She's only just beginning, so we'll be using kind of her as the base metric to make sure that the course is really accessible to everybody. So we still need to go through some of these basic concepts. But otherwise, we should be covering Mac, Linux, and Windows. Most of the recording is actually going to be done on Mac, simply because the recording tools and the ease of use is a bit better. This is not a philosophical statement. We're not stating a preference either way. It just happens that the tools we're using work better on Mac, honest. So that's kind of where we're going. However, everything will be transferable across to Windows, and if there's any difference, we'll make sure to kind of spend the time on the point and on the difference to make sure that you have the right content for your platform. So far, there's still a lot of stuff to be ironed out. For example, on the first real section, the first real project, talking about Linux and Mac. On the first project, we're actually finding issues with the library we wanted to use, which is an imaging library. And the imaging library turns out to use certain types of threading, and that type of threading is not very well supported on Mac. So we're getting issues with our graphics library actually right now, which is kind of what we're working through for the prototyping of the first project, or the image generation project. But definitely we'll make sure that it's supported on all three platforms and it can work on all three platforms. Related question from Victor: will we get a limited license, 1 year or so, from Xamarin Studio? We're in talks with the Xamarin Studio guys. You should be able to download Xamarin Studio for free. The trial version, there should be a free version available on the webpage. And we've got a direct contact with Xamarin, so if there's anything on the course that we cannot do in the free edition, then we'll be talking to them, and they'll either release a new version or show us a way to show it to you so that it's doable in a free version. I think this, the paid version only really comes into its own when you do some more advanced mobile development stuff. So when you basically want to use certain types of their graphics user interface library, rather than use the standard one, if you want to use their specific platform platform libraries, then you have to pay for a version. There's some limitation on the build size and build artifacts and stuff. But really, if there's any issue with the course, then we will get in touch with these guys, the Xamarin guys, directly. And the idea is that the entire course should be complete. You should be able to finish it without paying for additional material. So that includes the Xamarin license. So does that answer your question, Victor? Does that make sense? Good. Excellent. So yeah. So as I said, like the aim of the game here is for the entire course to be available to you without any additional costs. Now, if you want to go, buy an additional bit of Xamarin or buy more tooling or buy a different one, that's up to you. But the course itself won't require you to do so. Hopefully, we might do future courses in which we will go into advanced topics, and they might require additional tools. But we'll be very explicit about it, and it'll be at the front page of the course itself, so you'll know exactly what you're getting into. Cool. So what else can we talk about? No. The content of the course?
Well, the content of the course...
Oh, the hackathon. The hackathon. You've got a hackathon coming, actually. There's a really cool hackathon.
Well, I'm planning a machine learning hackathon, either in London or Cambridge in the UK. I'm working on getting some cool people on board with that. I don't want to say who they are yet.
I don't know when it is. If I'm in the country, I'm in.
I'd like to get some of the guys over from the US if possible, but I know it's a big ask to ship you guys, like, I don't know, 6,000 miles across the Atlantic. We'd love to see you, and at some point we'd love to come over to the US and visit you guys, probably when we're going to visit Xamarin to do some marketing material with them. But I'd definitely love to meet up with the guys from the community for FSharp.
Actually, Ryan makes a good point, right? Could we time it with Matthias's visit?
That is one of the things I'm hoping to do. So I've been speaking to Phil Trelford, and I'm hoping to be able to tie some things up with him, and then we can hopefully run a really awesome session here in Cambridge, because there's a new guy that started at Cambridge University who's big on machine learning, like one of the lecturers at one of the universities. NDC London is probably when we're going to time it. But yeah, definitely when we visit the US, we'll definitely come and see you guys at the Community for FSharp, because you guys are doing some awesome stuff. So we'd definitely love to see you guys.
We've got some crazy plans for 2016 actually.
Yeah.
To kind of hopefully do a tour of the big FSharp communities and spend some time with each of you guys just around the different big cities around the world. But we're not sure yet. We're still very early planning stages.
One of the ideas we have actually, which will be incorporated with visiting you guys, is we want to be able to help people that are doing C# user groups or just general .NET user groups, help them introduce content that is F# based. So we're trying to put together some kind of template for these groups to use to enable them to get up to speed with F# in their user groups, even if they're just novices. It's just to sort of give them something to hold their hands as they try to navigate something that's different for them.
Yeah, like the idea is to kind of write a playbook for how to run an FSharp user group, so that you can hand this up to somebody completely random, non-technical even, and they can start putting together meetups to kind of get people introduced into FSharp. So like we have a community playbook, so we can kind of put that in your hands and in the hands of the community, and then people will be able to create their own FSharp user groups locally, and we'll be supporting you. And we're not sure what kind of support that's going to be yet, whether it's going to be course online material support, whether it's going to be financial support for the groups. We're not really sure. That's just an idea we have for the future, basically, that we're thinking of. So like a community playbook, how to build an FSharp community, because we really like the language and we want to see it in more places and we want to see it expand. And I think that has to come, mostly from the community itself. So.
We're in a unique position actually, because I've been doing a few sort of groups and things in Cambridge anyway. Yeah. But for the size of the FSharp community, the tight-knitness of it all, and the way that they support each other, I've not heard anyone speak bad of anyone else, and everybody seems very supportive. Even if they're like novices, you get like the guys that are like experts really supporting them and cheering them along. So we're in a unique sort of position where we've got a great community to sort of work with. That's one of the things that really excites me. It's like meeting the people.
Yeah, I mean, like it's rare. We talked to some other people who've got a lot of experience with kind of web communities, and they were kind of surprised when we pointed them to the FSharp community about just how supportive they are, how much people help each other out. And one thing that came out is the FSharp community is really hungry for meaty content, so like content with lots of
real world is the term that really pops up a lot.
Yeah, and like you're willing to kind of read a longer, like the FSharp community is willing to kind of go into depth into some context, which is really interesting. So yeah, it's a really cool, exciting community, and we hope to make a good contribution to kind of grow it ourselves to kind of make it even better. Yeah.
What sort of things would you like to see us do in terms of the community? Is there any sort of quick wins we could help push as well? I know that you guys in the community for FSharp are doing a lot of stuff. Is there anywhere we could like find some kind of synergy with you guys?
So Ryan's been thinking about this quite a bit, but he isn't sure. So yeah, I mean, like definitely the playbook is one thing we've looked into and we're planning on doing, and supporting local FSharp communities around the world if we can somehow. More interactive sessions, that's quite interesting. So more things like this, like more hangouts, most likely to succeed. And okay. Yeah, so more interactivity. That's awesome. Like this is cool stuff. We could also do collaborative projects together. Let me read the rest of your comment. Absolutely, new book. Okay, most likely to succeed. Is that something you'd recommend, actually? That's quite interesting. New book, most likely to succeed. Who is it by? Do you remember the author? I'm really enjoying it. I'm always on the lookout for cool books. Now you've mentioned most likely to succeed. But the problem is the book list grows about 3 or 4 times the speed at which I can go through it. So got a comment and the link. Let me see whether I can open that up. mltsfilm.org. Awesome. So if you want to have a look at most likely to succeed, mltsfilm.org. That sounds quite cool, actually. Let me bookmark that. Most likely to succeed, and you've got the ebook. Mark, can you add those 2 links to the comments, actually, on the...
I'm trying to there's like loads of hexadecimal stuff. Not hexadecimal.
Cool. Yeah, I'll add that to, for those of you who are watching, I will add those links straight to the Hangout page, if I can find it. I'm in the Hangout, finding the page is something else. So more Hangout is basically the bottom line. More interactivity, more stuff like this. We're hoping that the next Hangout we will be able to invite a guest. We'll be able to invite a member of the community and kind of interview them while we do the Hangout with you guys, so you'll be able to ask them your questions. That should be quite interesting. It's always nice to have somebody who's kind of got a lot of experience in a language and who's done some real-world applications of FSharp to get them on board and to kind of have them demo what they've done. That would be really cool. So most likely to succeed. That should be in a comment. Cool. Lectures are the most useless, and hands-on discovery is more lasting and teaches the important how-to of thinking, problem-solving. I'm trying to move away from webcasts. We are too, for what it's worth. I think that lectures are a terrible idea, and we know that. It's just that the format we have access to right now, especially on the platforms like Udemy and stuff, is mostly video. But I agree. I think interactivity trumps almost everything, in particular when you're learning. And we have long-term plans to create kind of an interactive learning platform, but it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. So we definitely are thinking in that direction. If you want to kind of learn more about kind of the theory behind this stuff, a really interesting person to look at is called Brett Victor, and his website is worrydream.com. Can you add that to the Hangout?
Worrydream.
Worry, W-O-R, on the not on the Slack but on the Hangout page.
So Worrydream, yeah.
Yeah, worrydream.com, one word. And so yeah, he's got a really great blog post about the ladders of abstractions, I think it is, talking about the different ways we can interact with content, especially technical content. Trying to, right now, most of the online education resources, including our own, actually, are on level 1 or 2 of that ladder, and we're trying to reach level 4 or 5. And I've been working through putting together this in a little bit more formal and kind of where we're going. Which should be online at some point. I kind of explain the design philosophy and educational philosophy behind it and what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, absolutely. More interactive content is definitely the way to go. You'll find that the videos we're making, actually, we try and make them as interactive as possible, even though it's video. We're trying to kind of make sure you have pause, places where you have to pause and stop, so you can kind of complete the challenge. So there'll be clear sections to show you kind of pause now, do this, and then a review of what you've done. We'll also be putting a lot of quizzes and things like that. We'll also encourage you to kind of share your work with other students, and kind of every section should be a complete project, and at the end of the complete project, you'll be sharing your work with other students to get them to review it and kind of give you feedback. So that's some of the ways of building interactivity into basically what is static content, video content. But long term, we're going to be hoping to move away from static content altogether into really interactive content. Absolutely. Let me take a few minutes to read through the rest of the comments, actually. Eve by Chris Granger is also interesting current work. Yeah, Chris Granger is the dude behind Light Table, if I remember correctly, which is an idea that I really like. I really like the design philosophy behind Light Table. I think the original work, I mean, it was kickstarted as well, and the original work on Light Table was really interesting, like how to break down programming so it's no longer constrained by some of the text-based constraints we had. That was awesome. That was really interesting work. Very excited about where you are going with the content.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, that's awesome, chat. Observe the chat feed all you want. If you've got cool stuff to say, we are delighted. Yeah, so what do you? I haven't heard of Eve, actually. I knew he was working on something. I saw some of his blog posts. So Chris Granger, I saw him put out a bunch of blog posts and saying, hey, we need to do things differently. And I didn't ever see that concrete into something else. You'll see that the recent Strange Loop, which was only 2-3 weeks ago, which I haven't caught up on all the videos for it yet. And that is definitely something I want to watch. Actually, let me bookmark that right now. Let me bookmark that. Copy link address and bookmark it into my email somewhere. In fact, let me do better than that. Let me add it straight to the Hangout page. So
can we send another invite out to someone for the Slack channel?
So the Slack channel right now is for beta backers. So if you're not a beta backer, you won't have access to it. Most beta backers should have access to the Slack channel. We will be rolling out the Slack channel to everybody eventually, but not just straight away. This will take some time. We'd like to firstly release the what do you call it? We want to release the few first sections to our beta backers, get them to give us feedback through the Slack channel, then maybe revise anything we need to revise, and then we'll be opening both the Slack channel and the course to everybody, and that will happen at the same time. So that's probably why you can't get onto the Slack channel just yet. It's because because we are. I'm just reading through some of the comments. So yeah, so that's why you might not be able to get to the Slack channel just yet. If you are a beta backer and can't get hold of the Slack channel, you should have been invited. If you're not, send us a message on Kickstarter or by email, and we will send you an invite for sure. No issues there. But otherwise, that's probably why. But yeah, I think it's like the future of education, I think, has to be interactive to be successful. And that's one of the things that we found quite frustrating with Udemy, when we were building the previous courses, is that there's limited interaction, and I really want to build an interactive environment. And there's some ideas about how you program. That right now, a lot of programming is done in a non-interactive way. You even with the REPL, a lot of programming is actually done. You build content, you specify it, and then you ship it. And you're not. It's not software. It's hardware. It just happens to be written in software. So there's lots of stuff you can do that's very interesting. So for example, right now, you explore a domain, and then you create an artifact in the domain. That's your program. The program as an artifact is an artifact of your understanding of the domain. There's a different way of programming, and some of you who may have experienced Emacs development or any kind of Lisp environment, some sophisticated Lisp environments, there's an alternative way, which is where you you interact with an environment over the REPL or over something else to explore the domain, and as a result, as a side effect of your exploration of the domain, you end up with a program, and that program represents your domain, but you're not moving towards a program, you're moving towards understanding, and the program is kind of incidental. And that's a really interesting way of looking at problem solving, and I think we're not doing enough of it. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just weird.
I think it sounds cool. I mean, who wants to look at esoteric text if you've got something physical that you can play with and you can see the feedback so instant? It just helps your learning process because you can immediately tell what's happening and how the thing works. I think it's better to do it those sort of ways than messing around with esoteric text.
I mean, like, don't trust my word. I tend to be quite a good salesman, so that might be quite risky. But yeah, so I think that's one of the directions we want to be moving in long term. Short term, we'd like to make great video content that's as interactive as we can make it, but that's only for the short term. So probably our planning horizon for this kind of what I call static content is going to be until about the end of January, and hopefully moving into a lot more interactive content past January. That's the idea. So yeah, definitely check out the links. They should all be now on the Hangout page. If you're watching it in the future, we'll make sure that it's on the YouTube description as well. We'll make sure all the links are on YouTube, for sure. So do you want to talk a little bit more about Henrik, actually, who's joined us on the course? Henrik Felt has joined us as a core instructor, which we are really delighted about, which is awesome.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of stuff recently. And also, again, with Ryan, I understand that you guys have been collaborating on some of the... is it Freya that you've been collaborating on, or is it just generic Owen stuff within Suave.io? Oh, both. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can't wait to get my teeth into it as well, because I've been watching Suave now for a couple of months, and I thought it was really cool. I've struggled to get up to date with Owen, because I think it's a bit too complicated for me. But I can't wait to get my head into it and start learning it. And Gluon as well. What is Gluon? I've not seen that one yet.
Gluon, that's interesting. Do you want to give us a short description of Gluon, actually? Gluon FSharp. There's lots of particle physics stuff.
If you don't mind me joining audio-wise.
Tachius.com/Gluon. Interesting. We're checking it out right now, actually.
So this is Gluon provides type-safe remoting connector between an FSharp backend and a TypeScript client.
Gotcha. Nice. What? I take it you're using WebSockets behind the scene. Is that right? I think it is a lightweight generated TypeScript client for FSharp. No, just HTTP. Okay, cool. Yeah, I played around with WebSocket a while back, actually. That was just in plain JavaScript, though. And it's still not, sometimes you get into compatibility issues and browser support issues, and it can be a bit of a pain. When it works, it's wonderful. When it doesn't, you really need a fallback. Yeah.
I think maybe we can...
Converging on a singularity of sort. I think so. I think the web development stuff is definitely moving in a direction that's kind of quite interesting. I've been doing some web development stuff recently on functional reactive single page apps, which is really quite cool. And I think I'm really interested. I've been doing that work in ClojureScript, and I'm really interested in porting kind of the structure of the code into so using FSharp for the front end, so TypeScript, and FSharp for WebSharper, because I think it makes some really, really nice front end code that's really lovely to read and really nice to work with. And would I do a sort of short course on the CLJS as well? I think that would be really good fun. Yeah, really, really good fun. So yeah, I think like there's the functional reactive app is really interesting because you can do some stuff around testing that you can't really do in other structures when you're structuring your app in a different way. So because your entire input is just a stream of events, you can do event replays as well. So you can do really interesting debugging. So every user event just creates an event, sends it to a pipeline, and you can log all those events right straight to your server. So if a user finds a user interface issue, you can actually recreate exactly what they did, which is like awesome. And also, I don't know how much of how familiar you guys are, but there's this framework called ON and Reagent for ClojureScript, and they let you do really cheap kind of rewind. So because you're changing the state in a very controlled way, what you can do is kind of keep a history of the state of your front-end application over time. And when you press a given button, you can just jump to the previous state really easily, which is some stuff that you basically get for free just for structuring your app in a certain way. That's really exciting. Getting stuff for free, not having to do work to get good stuff out of your code is definitely a massive bonus. And you can do that in WebSharper and in ClojureScript quite easily. You could, I guess, structure the app in the same way in JavaScript, but most people don't. And it's quite hard to structure an app like that in JavaScript. It's just not the idiom you're used to, really. But it seems like it would work well with CQRS and event sourcing as well. Basically, that's what we're talking about. That's essentially like the principles behind event sourcing and what you're seeing in the front-end functional reactive apps are basically the same principles. And I went to a Python workshop at PyCon recently where it was all about event sourcing, and I was really surprised how applicable and how similar it was to some of the stuff I've been doing on the front end, which was really, really delightful because then I don't have to learn something twice, which is great. So yeah. You're like a more traditional developer.
Well, I started off. I'm for my sins. Started off in basic .NET sort of areas, like doing web forms. A very dark time of my life.
That sounds so much fun, Mark. That sounds so much fun.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of an exorcism at the moment to try and eradicate it from my mortal soul. But yeah, I want to get out of that sort of space of doing enterprisey kind of things. I don't find it very interesting. I think really I should have stayed in college and done a PhD in machine learning or something, because those sort of things seem to interest me much more than filling text boxes on a page. But yeah,
you don't have to go back to college. You can do this stuff now. This is awesome.
I'm enjoying it. I can't wait until I can spend more time becoming a bit more of a pro at FSharp, and really just sharing what I'm learning. I'm really finding it fun talking to the guys at work now about all of the new FSharp stuff that is out here and how it can make your life a lot quicker and easier. You don't have to go through all the rigmarole of scaffolding your websites up by hand.
I like rigmarole. That's a good word. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's nice to kind of see the benefits. I came to it. I think I came to functional programming a little bit before you did with Clojure and Lisp, which was a kind of an eye opener. I think when I first met functional programming, I picked up this book by this dude, and I picked up this book by Paul Graham called On Lisp, mostly because he was talking a lot about startups, and that was interesting at the time. And then I picked up this Lisp book from the same person. Absolutely fascinating. And the last chapter of the book, he recreates an object system in Lisp from really simple Lisp code. And after maybe 50 lines, he has a full object system. And I'm like, I've been working in Java at that time. That's like the second language I knew. And I was like, he just recreated all of the features of Java and then some in about 50 lines of code. I really need to learn functional programming right now. So that was my introduction to functional programming.
It's a bit of a rude awakening, I found.
It was, yeah. That really was. I mean, that chapter really changed stuff for me.
Okay, so we'll of course have a video explaining what is functional programming and its strengths. Yes. And what were you going to say?
I was going to say I wasn't sure actually. I think like we're definitely going to be building. It's like we are going to be building the functional principles into what we do.
Yes.
That's what we want. I guess a lot of this time we won't be explicitly saying like, oh, this is functional programming. We'll just be doing it, and hopefully that'll kind of seep in like by the back door. And by the time you're done, it'll be, oh, that's the natural way of doing things.
I was thinking that maybe we could do some later on do some videos around what Scott Balashin has done around functional thinking. We'd have to get permission from Scott. But if we could turn those into video, or ask Scott and help him turn those into videos, because a lot of people seem to be very happy with what he's been producing. It's like some of the most prolific stuff out there on the internet.
Highly recommend you check out FSharp.TV if you haven't already. Fantastic site. And yeah, exactly. Some of the videos around functional thinking, some of the talks he's given about functional thinking are absolutely top notch. Really interesting, really insightful, and they make some of the more complicated topics around functional programming really come to life in a really accessible way. I've rarely seen such good talk. I was really impressed, both as a programmer, because he was talking about quite advanced, interesting concepts, and as an educator, because he was making it so bloody clear. So yeah, highly recommend it.
He's one of my go-to guys, actually. Okay, so we aren't planning to compare with certain other languages that have been compared to death. Not really. We don't want to be doing comparisons, I don't think. We don't want to be saying you should do F# instead of C# either. We don't want to alienate the C# community. We want to drive it as something as an addition to what they're already doing, and as they start using it, they'll start to see for themselves, actually, this is cool, let's do more of this. Because it seems to be happening naturally anyway. Most people I work with now seem to really dig into the lambda expressions when they were doing like the plain old imperative OO type of C#, but now they seem to be drifting more functional. So all we have to do, I believe, is just be able to demonstrate it and allow them to sort of pick it up themselves. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think it's a much more natural way of learning it, actually. It's a case of you start using these tools and you find that they become better and better as you use them. Like you start using them and you'll get some experience with the functional tools, and then you'll see another problem and you'll start applying functional tools to it. It'll be really natural. It'll be like this problem, I've got those tools in my pocket, I can use them to make my code simpler, I'm going to start using them. And slowly over time, you'll find that a lot of your code changes, so that you look at the code you're writing, maybe 3 years before the process and 3 years after, and you'll notice a really stark contrast between the two code bases that you've worked on before you began the journey and after. But you won't ever be like, oh, I sat down and I learned functional programming. It will be like, I'm slowly building those tools and I'm slowly building my understanding of those tools. And at the end of the journey, or at least after a while in your journey as a programmer, you'll find, oh, these are just the better tools for this particular type of problem. And in my experience, I go back to OO tools, object-oriented tools. Now I've kind of built a collection of functional tools. And when I do, it's mostly to communicate with other programmers, which is a really interesting discussion, actually, about writing code isn't to communicate with computers. Computers don't need to be communicated with. It's about communicating with other people.
Yeah, it's a human language, isn't it? So.
Exactly. And so, like, the only time I ever find myself talking in OO, so to speak, is when I'm talking with people who haven't got functional experience. But most of the time, it's like I reach for the functional tools first. They just seem to be a better fit.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking. And again, I was discussing with Phil Sharp, that most of the time when you talk to people, their default option is to go OO. And I would really like to be able to shift that the other way, as many of you would too, because I think that OO has its place, but it's not 90% of the place. It should be, I believe, something like 10 or even 5% of the place. but you can't do without it. I think it still is useful in certain scenarios.
Yeah, and I think you'll find code bases that use the concepts, so you need to understand the concepts just to be able to kind of access those code bases.
Yeah.
And what Ryan has just said is like, and then you'll go back to code that felt nice before, and you'll be like, oh my god, what the hell? This is so painful.
I feel like I'm doing legacy every day now.
Right. Yeah, I went back to Java recently for like a hackathon project with some people, and I was like, wow, I did not remember it being quite so painful to code it. Now I've mostly coded Clojure and functional programming languages. So yeah, it's really interesting. That journey actually is really, really interesting because it kind of creeps up on you. It doesn't happen suddenly, and eventually it will just really, like, you'll be transformed and you won't really realize it. It's like boiling the frog, but in a good way.
So we've got a question here on Twitter from Christoph. Christoph is the guy that's behind the Atom work that's been going on, so thank you very much for your work on that. That's
nice,
exceptional.
thank you.
Thank you. He asks, will you mention or show during the course popular F-sharp tooling such as Packet or Fake? We intend to make it integral to what we're doing, so we want to make sure that we reflect the real-world use of F-sharp as much as possible. So all the projects that are using F-sharp, they seem to be leaning on tools like Packet and Fake quite a lot, so we want to make those as an integral sort of part of what we're doing. And we will be setting up AppVeyor accounts and Travis CI accounts when it's needed as well. So we'll show you how you can do those sort of common F-sharp kind of operations that you're doing when you do your projects.
Yeah, because I think there's a point here, like the F-sharp, the language, is quite separate from F-sharp, the tooling. And I think a lot of the beginners pain and a lot of people who are new to the language isn't the language itself. Actually, most languages are not that complex. Most people can learn language in just a few short weeks. It's just the language. But learning the tooling and how to build it and how to release it and all the professional tooling is actually, I think, what puts most people off, and what the biggest learning, like the steepest learning curve, isn't necessarily the language, it's all the tooling, at least initially. As you go deeper into a language, then you'll start to learn more and have better, like more powerful stuff to work with, and then you start to have to learn the language itself and the tools and the thinking and the idioms of the language. But initially, at least, the hardest points I've seen, and that's across many technical tools, from F-sharp all the way to Unity, which is what I was doing before. It's not the actual concepts of the language or the tool. It's actually just the initial tooling, the initial setup. How do you create a build? How do you release it? How do you integrate with something else? Or how do you get a package? How do you make a package? These seem to be the hardest bit, and hopefully we'll be giving you a really good intro on, or giving every student a really good intro on how to do these things in a way that's not just showing you the kind of a quick overview, but also kind of going into the concept of why you're doing stuff, why you're doing build, while you're doing those things, so that you can approach new tools with the same mindset, and it will hopefully be more useful to you than just showing you like step by step what you're doing. But we'll also do that, of course. So yeah.
Thanks for your question, Christoph. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
I've updated it on Twitter as well, so other people can see the answer if they're not on the Hangout.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions from you guys, or any more thoughts on the toolings that we'll be using throughout the course? Anything that we've not mentioned that you would like to see within the course?
Let me check the Q&A. Have we got anything on there? So how are we doing with our schedule? I think we're a little bit behind schedule right now.
Well, yeah, the schedule has been painful actually. So on our curriculum, we were hoping to get the two real beginner sections done by the end of October. However, I've had to delete some of the videos because they just haven't been the sort of quality I was expecting. And I've also been thinking about murdering my neighbour's dog, because every time I to important part of my videos,
I would like to point out, just for liability's sake, that you don't actually intend to murder.
I don't. No, don't worry. I'm not going to kill any dogs.
Let's rephrase that. You became very frustrated with your neighbour's dog's barking.
Exactly.
Please don't kill the dog. That would kind of put a real damper on this.
The dog is
lovely
safe.
project.
Don't worry.
But yeah, I think we've gone through the first section maybe 3 times by now.
Yes.
We know the dogs were harmed during the creation of this content in your release.
Okay,
You know what? I think
that.
we should mention that. That's a good idea. No animals were harmed. Yeah. So yeah, like we went through the first section and we recorded some videos 3 or 4 times now, just to make sure that we got the quality standards up, and we kind of have a really good. How do you say, a good, well, like a good bar to set the rest of the course to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been particularly difficult as well because some of the steps were installing software because we wanted to start at a base where maybe people don't have the tooling at least, at the very least. So installing the software, realizing you've done a mistake and you've then got to go back and wipe out everything from your virtual machine and do it all again, that was quite painful. But I guess it's necessary. We show people how to do it. We don't just tell them. So that's part of the pain. But no pain, no gain, right? So.
Yeah, and I think the focus is the kind of the difficulty from our point of view into what we're producing is going to shift from the production difficulties, which is kind of making sure the content quality is high. Right in the beginning of the course, during the first kind of half, the production standard is what kind of is hard right now. And then we'll get into the habit of getting to that standard, and then the difficulty won't be in the production, it will be in the content. So it's going to shift, and then the production settings, like how we produce content, is going to be kind of a routine. However, the content itself is going to get harder and harder as we progress through the course. So yeah, I think that's what usually. But I think we're quite proud of the first section, how it's turning out to be.
Yeah, it's coming together nicely, and I've had my wife do it, and I managed to get her to create a GitHub account, and she is completely non-technical.
For a lawyer, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good for a lawyer. I think if she has a GitHub account now, that's like a total win.
I'm slowly converting her into a software engineer.
It's really strange. I've seen that for some of my friends. A lot of them have been hanging out with me who are not technical. They're kind of slowly getting to code now, and I'm not sure whether that's me being a bad influence or a good influence. I haven't decided yet.
It's a good influence.
Good influence. Okay. Yeah, we're kind of biased in this space here, right?
Yeah.
Our backers and ourselves, we're totally biased about this stuff. So I haven't found an objective opinion about this yet. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're working on at the moment, the production issues. We've also got Henrik actually has been looking at putting together an FSharp image. We talked earlier about the interactivity, and we'd like to create an interactive environment for our students, for everybody on the course. Part of that involves creating a kind of a standard FSharp Docker image, and Henrik's been doing some work with that. And then we'll be layering on top of the base Docker image, we'll be layering an interactive layer on top, and we'll be creating an image for that. So we're going to be contributing the base Docker image back to the community that hopefully will become the default FSharp Docker image. So that will kind of some of the work that Henrik has been doing recently. And then we'll kind of build up from that to build an interactive environment on top as part of our efforts to create something interactive.
Yeah, so we're hoping that I think Thomas is intending to fix I say fix. He doesn't want to be using Silverlight anymore on the FSharp. So we're hoping that the image that we're creating can then be used by FSharp. I'm not sure. Again, I think Ryan, you may have had a bit of input in this with Henrik at some point. You seem to be quite integral to what we're doing here, somehow.
I'm delighted you're online.
Yeah,
I'm delighted you're with us right now. I'm stalking you. In the best of ways, but we're okay with that. Yeah. But yeah, so that's some of the stuff that we can look forward to actually, is that Docker image being released, so that's part of the standard FSharp Docker image. I missed your previous question. Oops. Okay, so yeah, it's about the we're creating the Docker image for the standard FSharp Docker image, and we'll be putting another Docker image up together for ourselves, and we'll be layering on top of the base Docker image, adding some tooling to make it an interactive environment. And we have a partner here in London in the UK who has a platform for kind of launching interactive environments through Docker. So hopefully we'll be putting together the base Docker image, creating that, releasing that back to the community, creating an interactive environment Docker image, and we're not sure whether to release it or whether to wait a little bit until it's stabilized yet. And then we'll be using this image alongside our Docker, our Docker provider, I guess, and we'll be putting that the interactive Docker image on top of the platform, and he'll be doing some of the user management, so that spinning up an image, spinning down an image, that kind of thing, and then hopefully kind of the combination of those multiple things will mean that we have an on-demand FSharp environment for our students that retains the state of your last session. So you'll be able to jump in, log in into an FSharp environment online that doesn't require Silverlight, and that will then be spun up and spun down when you. Early days, we are not making any guarantees about this. This is definitely the direction we want to move in, but we're not sure about timescales because there's some unsolved problems we haven't kind of got our teeth into yet. So that's kind of the stuff we want to be doing, and hopefully that will add a lot of value, not just to our students, but generally to the community. Having that infrastructure in place should enable other stuff to happen.
Yeah.
That should be pretty exciting.
In fact, a lot of the things that we want to be doing, we want it to have a knock-on effect, so that if we are doing things like a Docker image, we can then contribute that to the community somehow. So everything we're doing hopefully should have a positive spin-off for everybody. That's our aim in a way.
Yeah, and I think like Ryan just mentioned, Docker stuff looks exciting. I think like in terms of the future of how we deploy apps, it looks quite interesting. It hasn't quite stabilized into something that we could say this is the way yet. But there's definitely a few different offerings. Docker seems to be very, very popular. There's a couple of different ones. And especially for the management layer on top of Docker. Docker itself, and at least the Linux virtual machine system, is kind of that's pretty stable. But how we're going to manage that, how we're going to coordinate them, is still not all that well known. And there's several players, but I think once it's stabilized, we'll have some really like the infrastructure to release the published code is going to get very sophisticated for very little cost for the developer, which is a good win, I think. If that makes sense. Cameron Taggart.
I've just followed him with the FSharp account. I already follow him with my own account, so we'll make some contact with him.
We will, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we were always looking for people to kind of help us do this stuff for the community because there's only two of us, right? And FSharp is cool not because there's just a couple of blokes who put the language together, but because there's an open community, actually. So yeah, definitely, we'll reach out to Cameron and try and get him and see what we can do together, actually, for sure. Thank you for that. That's a really good tip. So that's one of the things that we hopefully can look forward to. I see Mark like pressing follow buttons, just like a crazy maniac, like follow all these different people. We've only kind of launched the Twitter account for the FSharp.TV, so we've got an FSharp.TV Twitter account, kind of madly following everybody in Twitter in the FSharp scene. So that's what we're doing right now. But, So yeah, I mean that's kind of the status right now, isn't it? Well, where we're at. We released an update for our Kickstarter backers today as well, with just a few basic items like status of production, Twitter account, this hangout, and we're going to hope to do 2 hangouts a month for the following few months. Is that right?
I think so. I think we can do that as long as you guys are free and available.
Yeah, and I mean, like we've got kind of 6 people right here, right now. But do you have a preferred time for these hangouts? The first one this time just works for us. But if you have a preferred time, we certainly are able to kind of move around. I know some of you are in the East Coast and the West Coast of the US, and the time is quite different. It works for me. Okay, awesome. Good. That's cool. So yeah, like I think unless we hear otherwise from the community and from the people who watch this on YouTube later, that this is a terrible time for them, this is probably around the time we're going to stick to for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that sounds okay for me too. Great hangout. Thanks for the stage for sharing your time. Your response out there. Nice to see you guys. Thank you, Victor.
You had
awesome.
Doubts. Well, I'm glad that we could
like we don't. Come on. But yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's useful to know that it's been like the hangouts work and are useful. So we'll keep doing them, definitely, and we'll give you a status report of how things are going and any news we have. So yeah, I think the next event, what's the next event? Is that the 31st, the game?
31st, Assistant Andrew Midnorski in London for a Game Jam event at Skills Matter. So if you can retweet that around the world, it would be really nice because we would like to get loads of people to come along to that.
And if you're a local, definitely I'll be down there as well. So let's build games in FSharp on the 31st. I mean, that sounds like a cool weekend, basically.
Before we go, I know that time is now coming to an end. I think in person, for me and Fabrice, we are really grateful for your support, not just your monetary support in backing us on Kickstarter, but all of the positive sort of messages you put out onto Twitter, out into the interwebs. So we really, really are grateful for it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, thank you. I don't think I can say anything else, but thank you so much for helping us putting this together. Hopefully we won't disappoint you, and we'll build something that you're proud of as well.
Yeah, that's what we're aiming for anyway.
Yeah, I think this is not a bad. Hopefully we can do something cool with FSharp. Hopefully we'll kind of see the peak in FSharp on Google Trends go up as a result of this. That's what we're doing. So. Awesome. I think that's a good place to end it. It's been about an hour, so we will see you in about 2 weeks' time. Look out for the details through Kickstarter updates and Twitter and Slack if you're on there for the next Hangout. And we'll see you then, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we've been doing so far. By the time we do the next Hangout, we'll have actually met up in person with Henrik, which we haven't managed to do yet. So hopefully we're going to see him this weekend. What we're going to start doing some production on his SWA section, of course. So that should be something to look forward to in the next Hangout. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that should be cool. All right, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for backing us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.